conflicts of interest for COC board members. 24 CFR 578.95. No COC board member may participate in discussion or vote on a matter concerning the award of a grant to the organization that the member represents. While we have invited all board members to this meeting pursuant to open meeting law, we expect the 5 board members representing COC funded agencies to recuse themselves from this discussion. Brian, would you like to take roll call and please share the organization you're with and that you were present?
Letitia Brown Gambino.
Keys to Change, present.
Tim Birch. Jessica Cruz.
Native American Connections, present.
Liz DaCosta.
Hello, Liz DaCosta with Access, and I'm here.
Chris Hallett.
City of Peoria, present.
Mike Hughes. Jessica Raymond.
Jessica Raymond, Atlantic Development, present.
Charles Sullivan.
Hi, Charles Sullivan, ABC Housing, present.
Sienna Valdez. Cricket Weatherington.
Present. AHI.
Danielle Wright.
Present. Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Co-Chair Milne. Co-Chair Phillips.
Vicky Phillips, Community Bridges, present. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is to acknowledge any public comment. This is the opportunity for the board to hear public comments received through the public comment form on MAG's website prior to the meeting. This may be related to items not on the agenda. All items on the agenda today are for action and will have their own public comment period, if applicable. A maximum of 15 minutes will be provided for this agenda item unless the committee requests an exception to this limit. Brian, were there any comments prior to the meeting?
There were no public comments received and no one to offer public comment at this time.
Thank you, Brian. Right, next item. Annual Notice of Funding Opportunity Priority Listing. Representatives from the Rank and Review Work Group will now present a priority listing options to the board for review and approval. The Rank and Review Committee will brief the board on these options for the 2024 Notice of Funding Opportunity and provide recommendations for adopting a ranked project priority list.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Co-Chair Phillips. Dylan Belmont with MAG here to do a quick introduction and situate us before the presentation today, joined by my colleague Cleo Warner and 2 members of the Rank and Review panel, Matthew Kelly and Jen Dangromond. Today, Cleo and I are going to give a brief overview of where we're at in the NOFO process, and then we'll pass it over to Jen and Matt to talk about how Rank and Review went and the outcomes of the review panel. After that, we'll be asking the board to vote to approve on one of the priority listings, and then our members from Rank and Review will provide a few observations that came out of the Rank and Review process. So looking at the big picture of where we're at, for this grant cycle, there were 24 renewal projects submitted for consideration. That is brought up to 26 when you include one project that was voluntarily reallocated, and another project that was held harmless for the scoring project due to being newly funded and not having performance data available. There were also 6 new housing projects submitted and 1 new project specific for building out the infrastructure of domestic violence services. However, with that, there isn't enough money available to fund all of those projects, hence why Rank and Review meet to determine which projects should get funded. What we see here, these numbers, is what's available for this cycle. So Tier 1, just over $40 million. That's the set that's guaranteed to receive funding. Tier 2, just below that, a little over $5 million, is the set of projects that, depending on how our COC consolidated application scores nationally will be determined by that tier 2 there. And there's also an additional up to $5 million available through the DV bonus should any eligible projects be ranked on the priority listing. If a project is not awarded the DV bonus, which is nationally competitive, it would then slot into either tier 1 or tier 2, depending on where it's placed.
So, this is Cleo with MAG. I'm going to walk us through briefly what the evaluation process looks for this piece of the NOFO process. So we first start with a threshold review, or what you could consider a threshold review. All applications go through MAG staff, and we determine if there are any technical corrections that need to be made, or if that they're even eligible through HUD guidelines, so that anything that actually makes it to our rank and review panel is eligible and has all of the right pieces that it needs to be an application for our NOFO process. And then next we have the rank and review collaborative that meets, and they are the ones who evaluate the projects. That is not MAG staff's role. That is the job of the rank and review panel. They interview applicants, they score the applications, and ultimately are meeting for 4 days together to do all of this very intensive review of what would make most sense for our community based on both objective scoring, as well as what they decide in the room when they score applications together, and community and board needs at the time. So ultimately what that comes down to is crafting these priority listing options for the board to review. And the rank and review panel has a single priority list that they recommend to the board every year. And that is what Matt and Jen are here to talk with you all about, to dig more into what that process looked like and what their final results ended up being. So the panel, the rank and review panel, is made of community experts every year. This year we had 7 people join across an array of groups in our system, whether that was nonprofits, jurisdictions, healthcare, or those with lived experience, helping to lend their expertise for the review of these applications. And you can see that our list of review panelists for the 2024 NOFO there. And now we are going to hand it over to Matt and Jen to get to these funding recommendations that they have for you.
Thanks, Cleo. I just want to, before we start going through the board priorities, I just want to say thank you to MAG staff. I know that there's 7 people who spent time reviewing all these applications, but it is so imperative. Without their guidance, this process would not nearly go as smoothly as possible. We spent 4 days, 2 days deliberating on applications, a full day with interviews, and then another day going through all of the scoring and doing this. And I will be very honest, we would still be in the room talking had we not had Cleo and Dylan there to help us. So I just want to say thank you a lot. It's like, seriously, your knowledge and understanding. And it was imperative. It was super obvious during this whole process that they did not just know the process, they actually knew the applications before they even got to the room. So they were able to speak to certain details and help us really understand applications if we weren't. So it's super important. So thank you. I appreciate it. Thankless work very commonly. So thank you. So board priorities. These were the priorities that the board, I believe, met a couple of months ago and decided were the priorities for the rank and review process this cycle. So those priorities are just restated: new and existing projects demonstrating care coordination through partnerships with health agencies, prioritizing permanent supportive housing projects existing, projects leveraging supplemental funding to expand unit capacity for the homeless response system. In addition, there were some considerations requested for reallocating low-performing renewal projects as well as domestic violence projects. We did keep all of this in mind as we're going through all of this, and we'll kind of go through the next couple of sections here. So next slide, please. So this is just a quick high-level overview of both options 1 through 4. Options 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 actually have the same unit breakdown, as you can kind of see here. And this is actually both Tier 1 and Tier 2. So option 1 has 1922 PSH units, and on the rapid rehousing side, 228. And option 3 and 4 has a slight increase here. PSH units are 1922 with an expansion of the rapid units to 244 units. The next slide is going to go ahead and kind of show you the breakdown by tier. So you can see the Tier 1, Tier 2, and then also the lost or the exceeds category as well. You can kind of go through this. This is just a quick overview. I'm going to let you go ahead and take a quick look at that. We'll go through some of the details on each of the additional tiers on the next page here. So as you can see, just kind of high level, I think we did our best here to move as many of the many projects out of the loss category so that we were maintaining as much of the rapid and PSH units throughout our overall system. So we can go through the next one. So options 1 and 2, next slide, please. Options 1 and 2 are essentially number 1, option 1 is our raw scores. Now, I do want to direct you to go ahead and take a look at the Excel documents that you have. So when you're looking at this, basically the white section is going to be Tier 1. I would say this is yellow section would be Tier 2. These are the ones that are going to be not necessarily guaranteed funding, but the higher up they are, the more likely they would be funded. And then the orange section would be the exceeds category. Those exceed any available funding that we do have at this point in time. So number 1 is literally just our raw score. And then number 2 is our raw plus discretionary. Just a note on the discretionary, this is obviously when the rank and review committees reviewing each and every item. Each section has an opportunity for discretionary points. If a program didn't score 100%, there's an opportunity to review those sections to determine if there was an opportunity to increase the scoring. There's typically a narrative that's provided but from the provider that allows us to review and take that into consideration. I will say with the discretionary points, we did our absolute best to make sure that we were consistent across all providers. So if we're offering discretionary points to one provider, we're doing it similarly to every provider across the entire network, which is commonly what takes the most time in these discussions. So as you can see, in Tier 1 and Tier 2 here, there's going to be 15 new rapid rehousing units. And you can kind of see that from the new projects as they're indicated on Tier 1 and Tier 2. 75 new PSH units, which is from the Casa de Salud program. And then on the loss side, there would be 16 units of family rapid rehousing that would be lost, and then 5 existing DV units that would be lost through the rapid rehousing program. These are option 1 and 2. These are not our recommendations. This is just the general breakdown of those two things. Are there any questions about those sections before I kind of move on as you're looking at the charts, the graphs? I know it's a lot to take in, so I'm happy to give a minute if that works.
I will just add briefly that we don't want to just torture you with all of these numbers.
Yep.
I know it's a lot to look at, but we did understand that there was a request from the board to better understand where all of these breakdowns were when it came to units and who was being served in these projects. So it's not always pretty to put on the presentation, but really wanted to make sure you had these numbers in front of you at this time.
Right. It's important that these are not the recommendations that we're making at all. So, all right, we can move on to section options 3 and 4. So options 3 and 4, these two options are actually the options that the Rank and Review Committee has put together. Commonly, we provide multiple options to you all for considerations, and then we do have one specific recommendation. So option 3 is what we considered a PSH priority. So when you're looking at the order here, the main difference from option 4 is that in Tier 2, the UMOM and CBI projects are flipped in order, more or less prioritizing the PSH unit in that option, and then also flipped in order to honor the PSH priority to cover our bases, only partially tier 2 funding for that PSH program as it's stated. Now, option 4, which is the rapid rehousing family priority. This priority is the recommendation of the Rankin Review Committee. And what we more or less did in this option here is flipped and prioritized the rapid rehousing units in tier 2 to the top of tier 2. Ensures that the family projects are not entirely cut from our COC, even if they were lower scoring in the application process. We did identify projects that had existing health agency partnerships in this section. In that section, we kind of highlighted, Casa de Salud and TCAA. Both of them are new projects, but they did have a clear outline of the prioritization of the health priority. Again, this option prioritizes PSH, both new and renewal projects. I think it's of note with regards to this section, what I would like to also indicate here. So asking about reviewing and leveraging unit capacity, which was listed as a board priority. While we did see that there was a indication of match, which is an obligation of the funding here, we didn't necessarily see where there was an expectation or an option where they would be looking at expanding the unit capacity with any of the funding in the system. So the units were staying the same. There was a match. However, we're not seeing how that's potentially benefiting the system when we were kind of going through all of our applications. But what is kind of interesting in this process is we did notice that when we did some of our questions with each of the providers, we did ask about if there was a reduction in funding across the entire system. What we did find is that there was a willingness to relook at budgets, consider how they might be able to better utilize those funds. It seems as if providers are willing to find a way to leverage some of those relationships in the community if there were questions being asked about that. It might be something that we consider looking at in the future. This list also places a slight priority on performing family projects. So family projects with positive outcomes. For example, UMOM placed slightly higher in tier 2 to increase its chance of being funded. And then a few projects apps stood out this year that we wanted to go ahead and highlight. These are kind of like new system projects that are potentially exciting opportunities for that. So we did include them in tier 2. So we have TCAA's new rapid rehousing program, put it towards the top of tier 2 as well to improve the opportunity of that being funded, as well as Casa de Salud, which is a partnership with Access for the H2O project. So both of those projects were interesting and seemed to be doing something new and exciting for our community. So we did want to place them in tier 2 to improve their opportunity for being funding. These two projects were not placed in tier 1 because even though they did score for tier 1, because we really wanted to make sure that we were preserving existing units in our overall community. So we did prioritize maintaining the PSH units that do exist in our system, as well as maintaining some of the family and DV projects in our system. All right. One last note about option 4 that I think should be looked at, and this is kind of a finer detail within that. A new LEAFs funding did have a decrease, and I just wanted to highlight that and speak to that. The panel did make a request to decrease this due to the fact that they had basically underspent on that grant in the previous year, and we'll be looking at that as well this year. So we made a recommendation to decrease the funding for the new LEAF because of that. We do feel that they are serving the population well, but that the funding that they received wasn't necessarily a need at this time. Also, it was really kind of a desire to make room within tier 1 for as many projects as absolutely possible while also maintaining a DV project in the system. We did see that what they were doing was good and it was performing, but we also wanted to decrease because they weren't utilizing all of the funding and they were giving that back at the end of the year. And again, we're also a desire to save the rapid rehousing family projects as well throughout our system. And by doing that decrease, we were able to do that. That was a lot. Are there questions?
So there's one new DV infrastructure up to 5 million. That's a DV bonus project. Where is that represented? Or is it not represented?
It is not represented in tier 1 or tier 2. It's in the exceeds category. It's actually the United Methodist Outreach Ministries DV Safety Triage and Initial Housing Screening Project is where that's located. It was basically the group kind of met with regards to this, and last year there was a significant investment in infrastructure in our community. And based upon that, we decided that infrastructure maybe wasn't the priority this year in our community, as well as the fact that it was one of the lowest scoring projects in the application process as well.
Oh, I have a question. Not, oh, wait, no, what ask?
I would love to hear your question, but thank you for honoring that.
So New Leaf's rapid rehousing project is the only DV project that's being funded? Is that correct?
That is correct.
And why is that?
The other DV project in our system was the CPLC project, and the CPLC project is a very small project. I believe it was serving 5 families, and it had unfortunately been underperforming for a number of years. And based upon that and this year's scoring, we opted to put it in the exceeds category. When we were considering that, we looked and made sure that there was funding available through the New Leaf project to account for those 5 lost units.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This is Liz. You may have it there in person, so my apologies, but do we have the sheet that actually shows the results for the different options?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, we do. We actually had 4 Excel spreadsheets, Liz. I'm so sorry that you weren't provided the 4 fancy spreadsheets here.
Them in the chat. They should,
I need them as well, Matt.
I'm so sorry.
they should.
Yeah, no problem.
There should be a link in the chat currently where you can get them online where they've been posted.
I apologize. We should have asked if you had them all ready to go.
And no, and I don't see a link in the chat for it. And I was searching online, but yeah, if you could put it back in the chat, that'd be great. And I'll go take a look. But I really appreciate the slides and how you've gone over the details for a lot of the decisions as to how we got to the results on the Excel sheets. Thank you.
We're happy to wait, Liz, if you have additional questions. I don't want to close this off if there are additional questions as part of this process.
And you know what? No, yeah, thank you so much, Matt. And it actually says chat disabled. So I don't know if we're going to be able to access the link through the chat.
Okay.
We're gonna get it to you momentarily, sorry.
Thank you so much.
Again, I think I would feel more comfortable knowing that everybody had an opportunity to review it. No, just in all fairness. So how about this weather?
So
No,
we are going to work on that and make sure that that gets sent out. In the meantime, let me just say, folks, thank you for calling in or for getting online. Those of you who are on vacation and are calling in from your vehicles while you're taking your kids to parts unknown in the United States or wherever you may be. And when we called you and said, please join so that we can get this done in short order, we really, really, really appreciate it. In particular for folks who are not, are here so that we could get quorum and are here to learn what's going on, but are not able to discuss or vote. We appreciate that that's not always the most comfortable situation to be in. It is kind of a HUD regulation, and that's why we're sticking to that. But thank you for being here regardless, so that we can get this work done. We really appreciate it.
So if we can, if you don't mind, while we're waiting for them to get their documents, I think we can go over the recommendations or the observations from the committee. Is that?
Everybody who is online, can you just confirm that you have been able to access the documents? We
I
wanna-
have it now.
I have it as well, and I'm sorry, I was 2 minutes late calling in. I'm Kimberly Thompson, Salvation Army. I'm here for Laura Scott Nicky today.
Great. Thank you for being here, Kimberly. Is there anybody who is listening online who is not able to access the document still? Okay, we're gonna turn it back over to you, Matt.
I'm going to turn it over to Jen, so.
Can we go one more slide, please? 2 more slides. So I think an important thing to remember when they pulled together the rank and review panel, some of us are deeply rooted in the sector and some of us are not. So we really have to rank, review, score the applications on what we see in that application and what we hear in the interviews. And that's the gist of it. So what we saw is there were a number of applications that weren't complete. Where it said upload, there was nothing uploaded. So those are just those little details that we always have to remember. We double check. One of the very first questions was, tell us about the need and how your project meets that need or something. To the question about DV, there were a couple applications and we were left wanting more information about what that population looks like. Is it a subset of the larger group experiencing homelessness? Is it actually this very unique population that also is experiencing homelessness? Tell us about that. So we can't infer, we can't sit there and, Google when we're going through the process. So we really need a little bit more information on that. I think on the project design, and Matt and I have 2 different ways of thinking about this. Coming from a PSH, I'm thinking unit capacity. How often can you turn that unit? What are you doing? Move on strategies, higher levels of care, reconnecting with family. Matt's looking at a scattered site. How are you really leveraging those units? Are you having other partners come in? The question about would you be able to work through a reduction in funding? Man, that was the answer, because you could see how people could leverage other dollars and go to other systems to make those units, get more units literally online. And that's what we were looking for. And really that's one of the things that the board is looking for. The board is also looking for that healthcare partnerships. There's a fine line between listing your partners and how you really work with them. So TCAA, I'll call it out, like they're bringing in community health workers. That's a brand new, not super brand new anymore, but that's a new provider in the system. It's baked into their project. Casa de Salud, that's the HTO, that's the thing. So that was baked into that project. And I think that's really what the board was looking for when they said, look for those healthcare partnerships. And then to that, and what does that do to impact the client in the unit? So those were the overall items. I think, we didn't get to it, prep for the in-person interview, come in, be prepared, kind of double check, what you might have missed, be ready to add it to the interview. So those are things that, anybody and everybody can work on over the next year.
Okay, so then with that, I think that wraps up the presentation that we had prepared for you all. So the next step would be the vote or further discussion on the priority listing that was recommended by the rank and review panel.
Can we
Thank
do
you. Thank you to everyone for the presentation. Dylan, Cleo, Matt, Jen. Are there any additional comments or discussion from the board as far as next steps?
I'm sorry, did we hear the specific rank and review recommendation?
Oh, I'm sorry, Liz. Thank you.
The specific recommendation, Liz, was option 4, which was the prioritization of rapid rehousing, family rapid rehousing.
Thank you for that, Matt. And I'll just take a minute to review. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Just a quick question. So the only thing I could tell between those is the swapping of those two, the rapid rehousing versus the permanent supportive housing.
Correct.
Okay. So why the one over the other then?
Well, family rapid rehousing programs, I think, are really important for our community. And so we and the committee also felt that like making sure or improving their opportunities for being funded through the tier 2 was a major priority. Losing additional family units in our community right now, I think would be a significant loss and would be damaging to the overall community. So we wanted to prioritize them over PSH units. Mhm.
Just to clarify, Mrs. Cricket, that I think what you said and what I think I see is that it's still tier 2 is still the same. It's just the order between 3 and 4. It's just the order within tier 2, correct?
That's correct. I think we want to be, we don't know that tier 2 is going to be 100% funded. So our options is to get as the highest priority programs to the top of that list. If there is a partial fund for whatever reason, I know that historically our community has been funded through tier 2 100%. We don't know. I want to be super cautious, like that we may not always be that community. So.
Is it possible to go back just to the beginning slides that's had the option 1, whatever, the first 2 slides, I think?
This one?
Yes.
And I mean, when you look at this, you can just see like 3 and 4 both prioritize the existing PSH units through our community all the way around as per the board recommendations. The option tier 1, like for example, or I'm sorry, option 1 had nearly over 100, almost 120 less.
Rapid rehousings, right? That's what you're saying?
Permanent supportive housing, in fact.
Oh, yeah.
We can look that up right
I'm so
now.
sorry. I don't have that exact, I apologize. I don't have that number on me.
I can
Yeah.
I could find that in a minute.
Option.
Yeah, it is indeed the 55 units. Mhm.
We still have a few minutes to review the information.
I feel like for me, the board priorities, for me at least, I left there knowing we were clear we wanted to prioritize permanent supportive housing. And then of course, like partnerships with healthcare agencies. So we're like leveraging these dollars as far as possible to try to get supportive services covered through the Medicaid system. So obviously, in a world where we don't have enough units, our dollars that can be spent on housing can go as far as possible. So I understand the need for the rapid rehousing for the family priority, but we didn't leave there with that being a board priority. So I wanted to open it up for the board for further conversation. I think it seems like based on our priorities that we all discussed, it would be option 3. Where we focus a prioritization on PSH.
Chair, if I might. As well as further information. All right. Well, so Tim Burke, City of Tempe, I would just say I agree, Liz. However, In the recent term of several family shelter programs closing down, we overnight in the city of Tempe saw our bridge shelter transition from 40 units of individuals to 21 units full of families overnight due to reallocation of local programs no longer being available in the month of September, October. And having working educators living in their car with children, I think is just a line in the sand that we've got to draw. And I would certainly be leaning into option 4 to make sure that the family rapid rehousing element will be present in our plan if at all possible.
Thank you. And it was my understanding too, how we got to the board prioritization for permanent supportive housing was that there were municipalities who had other fund sources that could contribute to rapid rehousing, but really our only place for funding for permanent supportive housing really exists within the continuum of care funds. And then of course, like our public housing authorities. But what this board has the ability to be able to have oversight of is we have municipalities who can fund rapid rehousing a little bit more readily, but this being the resource mostly used for permanent supportive housing. So wanted to open up the conversation for that as well. Do we feel confident that there are other fund sources that can cover the rapid rehousing models these programs have put forward compared to us lacking that for the permanent supportive housing programs that folks have put forward?
Brian, maybe I missed it. If you could, I can't see with the view the way it is on the screen. I thank you very much. So options 3 and 4 keep the permanent supportive. They're both equal on permanent supportive. I'm reading that correctly? Sure. All right. So I'm reflecting because I'm newer to this community. What I heard historically, we've gotten all of tier 2. We're concerned that we may not, but either way, both of these projects are the like number 1, number 2 in that tier, in that second tier. Is that correct? We're just flip-flopping the order. Okay.
The committee didn't have any knowledge with regards to other municipalities funding rapid rehousing when these decisions were being made. So I think that was part of the reason that we made this decision. We did have knowledge of the family systems challenges right now. So I think we were making an effort to speak to that population as well as also trying to honor that PSH when we were reviewing that list. So like, I hear what you're saying as well. I also know that when the community we were not advised that like, hey, X is bringing all these other rapid units to the community, in which case that would have potentially impacted the committee's decision.
Yeah, I know Rachel's not here right now, but it was a specific discussion we had as a board around why we were placing permanent supportive housing as a priority for us, for you all to review for rank and review. It was actually a question I asked. And so the feedback I received from the board helped me feel confident with us prioritizing permanent supportive housing. So I think we would need other board members to speak in here too, who are part of that conversation. Like if we felt that was a priority for us, that was a sound decision, what is the change now?
Thought I wasn't
It
like
is.
thing or something in the process. I'm just trying to see what the fundamental difference between I was looking at 1 or 2 recently, just at 2 because you've got the raw scores with the discretionary scores. It's the same people in the bottom, right?
No.
Yeah, it's the tier 2 question. So if we do not get full funding and cannot fund everything in tier 2, well, then have rapid rehousing projects that we've prioritized over permanent supportive housing projects in the priority list 4.
So Liz, are you saying that you would prefer to see the PSH moved up to higher slots, 24, 20, like up higher in the tier 2?
Which is priority list 3. Now, we've got the Tempe Rapid Rehousing Program. That's a new rapid rehousing project that, even though we say priority list 3 is PSH priority, it's second in tier 2. So we'd have to have conversation on that. But what I'm very interested in is, as a board, we determine priorities, and I put a lot of thought into that. And so if we're going to be, modifying that, I would like to hear contribution in the conversation from everyone, so that, if family homelessness, and my heart goes out to it 100%. But if it's a modification to what our priorities were, we should all have a conversation around that before we proceed forward.
I have a question, if I may. Can you tell us, I'm just looking at the high score of the new ones with the discretionary versus the raw. Can you tell us why those tend to outscore the existing projects?
Typically, there's outcomes that are being measured in an existing or a renewal project, whereas a new project can tell you what they would like to do with their project and provide a lot of information, and can score well through a narrative process, and can score really, really high, just because they don't provide us any outcome data at all. So it tends to be easier to score higher.
I think we've done this in the past, but I would recommend, I support what we originally said and what Liz is talking about, but I would be more supportive of option 3 with Community Bridges, then United Methodist Outreach, and putting those two above the new projects is a rank order. So just moving, option 3, just moving the next steps housing and swapping that with I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Above Tempe action.
Yeah, just swap those two.
I would just point out so when we're looking at the priorities that the board walked away with back in August, the first priority was preference to new and existing projects that clearly demonstrate care coordination efforts through partnerships with healthcare agencies. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt and Jen, but I think that's why Tempe the Tempe Community Action Agency was scored. One of the reasons it was scored highly is that it showed evidence of that type of collaboration and gave very detailed specifics on that. And then
But it's new, right?
True.
Gets back to what the previous answer was. They could score well on an application versus demonstrate it.
True.
That's all I was differentiating the two. A known quantity where it's another priority is not losing, I'm assuming it's proposed performance versus demonstrated performance. And I think we probably need to look at that next time as an equalizer, because I don't know how they fare out from new to the first year, historically, but.
We do a lot of work in trying our best to make sure that the questions are as equivalent as possible. And we've done work in very recent years to try to equalize and not create such a spread between new and old applications. But at the end of the day, it is just really tough to judge someone based on what they say they're going to do versus what you've already done. And so that spread is always going to be there, which is why the rank and review panel is so important, to be able to add that context that you just can't always get with the data and those hard numbers.
And real quick, Chris, the flip side of the coin is that you just have the same folks getting renewed every year. And no, you don't ever get new programming, which we don't want that either. So it's, I think we worked pretty hard this year to make sure that we had a balance, especially after feedback from last year.
It's just one slot difference, and a known quantity versus an unknown. And I just, unless they're not performing and they shouldn't be funded, that's a whole different description versus but I'm always a bird in the hand kind of a guy. I know what I'm gonna get. Known evil, even if it's not, but I mean, it's just, they're still in there. I'm hopeful they all get funded and it's just a exercise in ranking versus funding. But I just, again, I wanted to reiterate, I concur with Liz on option 3, so, but that would be my slight spin on it.
Can you clarify that one more time? Which two are you saying swap?
I'm just suggesting option 3, where you move up the United Methodist next step above the Tempe Rapid Rehousing new project. Just swap the 2.
Okay.
Just for clarity's sake, then, is there a motion for option 3?
And real quick too, I wasn't thinking, Chris, about modifying within the option, and I really appreciate your feedback there, and I agree with that too, but I would also suggest, given the board priorities that we all discussed, that the Casa de Salud go above the Tempe Rapid Rehousing Program as well. So it would be option 3 with the current PSH program, CBI PSH, to then the United Methodist Outreach Ministry current program, and then we prioritize the PSH over the Rapid Rehousing new project.
Liz, just to
So
clarify, the new order would be 24, 26, 27, 25.
24, 26, 27, 25. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And always hopeful we get all tier 2 funding, absolutely. And that we focus in on other fund sources that can cover rapid rehousing programs to address our concern with increase in family homelessness, engage our governor's interagency council on housing and homelessness as well with this, as we discussed in our last board meeting, but really try to remain with what the board priorities were when we come to determining our decisions for rank and review.
I hear, sorry, I just am like a little, I'm like, I hear everything that's being said here, but I'm also like, just trying to make sure like it sounds to me like we don't have a commitment for those programs for the rapid rehousing dollars. It sounds like right now it's a conversation that's being had. And I just want to make sure that we aren't necessarily setting up our community for losing a family housing program and not having a bridge to another program that's going to serve that population. I think that's, does that make sense, Liz? I'm
driving your order while you have a
yes, I think it was an app.
R than a PSPS.
Yes, it was, because I think from like our perspective, we were trying to make sure that we were addressing the family need in the community, knowing the things that are going on right now. They've lost a number of shelter beds. There are dwindling options for families. So while I hear everything that's being said, the rank and review committee did not have that knowledge as part of this conversation, Liz. I heard the prioritization, but I feel like we made that effort to prioritize PSH by moving all of those programs up to make sure that we were maintaining the PSH in our community and still trying to then also balance the needs of families at the same time. So like, I hear what you're saying. I'm also just hesitant that we're making a commitment to all PSH in the COC, and we don't have a commitment for the rapid dollars from another community right now. And if we know that's already there, then I'm open to that. I just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful.
Yeah, no, I agree, Matt. I think.
Go ahead, sorry.
I think that's, I think that we've also heard you very loud and clear. And so Chris's recommendation to move the UMOM rapid rehousing program above any new PSH to 25 was, I feel like, us understanding that and taking an existing rapid rehousing project that serves families across the entire Maricopa County and prioritizing it over PSH.
I'm sorry. I don't have numbers on my document. I'm so sorry.
No problem. So the new suggestion would be project priority list 3.
So it would be 3, and it would be community bridges, and then it would be UMOM Next Step 3, and then it would be ABC.
Casa de Salud, the
and then
27th.
it would
Yeah.
be TCAA.
Yes.
So just to be clear, then the motion would be option 3. Is that correct?
Not option
I think
3.
we're having a
with
conversation about it first.
Option 3 modified.
So would we like to motion to have option 3 modified with the recommended changes?
Matt, can you tell me if given that new, like that updated information around the UMOM recommendation, does it help you understand that we're not just trying to like focus solely on the board priorities? We've heard you about family homelessness here too.
I hear you, Liz. Yes.
So, and just to,
I think the next step that I have, sorry, like I apologize, like I'm like hesitating and I'm stuttering over here because I feel like the one thing we've offered is 2 options on this point. And historically speaking, like you're in a position of approving one of those options. And I'm just from like a policy, like MAG, whatever.
Well, let me address that.
Thank you.
If the board wants to make a motion to approve one of these versions with alterations, they can certainly do.
If that's okay, then
So I'll leave it there. Co-chair, if you want to call for
I'm
that.
asking the question and then we can go from there. That's thank you.
Good question, Matt.
So then
Before we move forward, I just have a question. So this tier 1 appears to be ranked in the order that is scored. Tier 2 is not. Why is that? And why are we not just ranking it in the score order where it appears either way, Save the Family is going to be at the bottom. Can someone explain that to me?
Because then we're looking at the project type versus the raw score. So 3 pulls those PSH units up, and then 4 was the rapid. So we're looking at the project type versus the actual score.
If we did raw scores, all the new projects would score at the top of tier 2 before any of the renewal projects in our system. So it would be TCAA, it would be Casa de Salud, then it would be the CBI project along with UMOM following that, if I remember correctly. So like it would be essentially lowering the prioritization of both the PSH existing and rapid rehousing for new projects in our system, which we were hesitant about doing considering there was a prioritization for, renewals.
And Danielle, if you were to look at, correct me if I'm wrong here, but list 1 is just raw score in descending order. So that's what it would look like essentially without the prioritization structure that the board put in place in August to say PSH should get prioritized over rapid, et cetera. Other points of discussion from the folks who are expected to be voting on this? If not, go back to you, co-chair.
I was just going to ask, I appreciate you putting it up on the screen, but is there a way to actually visualize what's being said? Because I am not an auditory learner and I need to see what I'm about to vote on. And there's been so much crosstalk. I've lost track.
I think yeah, thank you, Tim. 5 seconds.
and just for anyone who is a verbal learner, it would be tier 2, changing it to the CBI PSH 74, the UMOM Next Step Housing Consolidated 3, Casa de Salud from ABC, the TCAA Rapid Rehousing Program, and then the Save the Family Rapid Rehousing Program. That is the proposed shift at this moment from option 3.
Thanks for working
there-
on team. Yeah, so we weren't prepared to do like line by line changes in this meeting, but thank you for your patience.
While they're doing that, can I ask a question?
Yeah, and it is up on the screen now.
Okay, well then I'll wait for my question. That's good.
So has everyone had an opportunity to review the changes, both visual?
We haven't changed it
This is what you're seeing on the screen is the proposed change to option 3.
yet. That's not what. Brian
This
had.
would, I guess, be option 3 modified, which we can make it.
Yes.
option 5.
We may have had two different versions of a modification. There's one that looks like that, and then there's one that bumps PSH up to the top of tier 2.
That looks
Now,
like the one
I think
said. That's one I said. I don't think it's the one that Liz said.
got it. So I think it would be helpful to have
Liz, can
I'm
you
sorry.
confirm if this is what you were envisioning?
Yeah, and I'm gonna use our time to make sure that we have opportunity to communicate together and stuff. So yes, this is the one I'm thinking supports the board decisions for prioritization. So existing projects, we have their score, and we have the permanent supportive housing prioritized. We have heard of the concern for the increase in family homelessness, and so we want to be able to have a system that can move and be responsive. So thanks to Chris, we've now prioritized UMOM as a renewal project, even though it's rapid rehousing. And then our next highest permanent supportive housing new project, their score is 78. It's Casa de Salud. And then from there, if we even look below to the final tier, the next highest scoring rapid rehousing project is the Tempe Community Action Agency project. We don't have any that are not in tier 2 below that are scoring as high as the Tempe Community Action or even the Save the Family Foundation. Because Save the Family would be an existing rapid rehousing project that we'd work to prioritize. So this is what I think makes sense for us. And if folks are in agreement, I'd be ready to take a motion.
All right. Would like to motion to approve the recommended changes reflected on the spreadsheet.
This is Liz and I move.
Okay, we have a second.
It's Chris. I second.
All right. We have a motion from Liz and a second from Chris. Is there any discussion of the motion from the board? All right. I'm now going to ask Brian to proceed with roll call for those joining online. And as a reminder, the following board members are eligible to vote on this item.
folks who are not receiving COC funds include Tim Birch, Liz DaCosta, Chris Hallett, Jessica Raymond, Cricket Weatherington, Danielle Wright. So I'm going to read through those names. Please let us know how you wish to vote. If you, in fact, folks who are online, joining online, you know what, I'm just going to do a roll call because I can't see everybody right now. So we're going to roll call and yes or no, yay or nay. Tim Birch,
Yay.
Liz DaCosta,
Yay.
Chris Hallett,
Yay.
Jessica Raymond,
Yay.
Cricket Weatherington,
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
The motion passes. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. Good lively discussion today. I appreciate the time and the discussion, and thank you all.
Can I just add real quick, Rank and Review Committee, did you go through the points that you were going to discuss at the end? That was what you were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Can
you.
I ask a question? Not about the vote, but about those, but about TA for the lower scoring is like, do we have a plan for that? Yeah, can you maybe tell us what that is at the next board meeting or something? Because I'm concerned about some of these scores. Thank you.
We'll add that to the next board meeting.
Real quick too, Brian, if you're done with that one, sorry. Yeah, and I know how much time this takes for our rank and review committee, so thank you so much for all of the effort that you put into this, and then the slides too, they were very helpful. I think the other thing for me is we're pretty regularly saying like this difference between new and existing projects, which I have concern with. I think you can dream up a really incredible program, and then when you go to operationalize it, you experience challenges that you didn't anticipate, and your score ends up being lower. So we always have to be cautious of vision versus actual. But it would be nice too if we can also look at like for some of the scores for the projects, if they were new projects the year prior, if we could try to get some understanding of what those differences are. So when they were a new project, this is what they anticipated they would score versus actually after a year of operationalizing it, what was their score? So I think it would help me at least with like further conversations down the road about kind of understanding what those differences might be.
Thank you, Liz. All right, if there's no further discussion,
I'm
we can.
sorry, Vicky.
There
I
is.
I just want to add that if we keep continuing with existing projects and we don't give new projects a chance, how will we ever know whether they can perform or not? We have to start thinking that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional last comments? Thank you all for your time today.
Are we adjourned, co-chair?
We're adjourned.
Okay, thank you.